What if the mess is the method? What if the I don't know what I'm doing and stumbling and falling all over your face is the point? Hi, I'm Gabby Roberts, and welcome to the Fierce and Free podcast. Today, we're going over a few things. One, why messy progress is better than no progress at all. And two, I have a little announcement. I have rebranded my podcast. Now, it's still the same concept, but I like to call it Fierce and Free. And I want to share a little bit of why I named it this, what's to come, what's changed, and teach you some very valuable lessons about the messy progress. Because the toxic hustle culture will not tell you half of this stuff. This should be illegal to tell you, but I'm going to do it anyway. Because, again, the mess is the point. So first we'll start with the podcast. Now, it was called Grow with Gabby, and I love it because if you're growing, that's kind of the whole point. One of my biggest fears is just staying the same and not changing at all, which is interesting because that didn't used to be one of my fears. A big fear of mine was genuinely like changing so much that I didn't know myself. But I realized you're supposed to change. You're supposed to grow. You're not supposed to stay the same 24/7. And so I'm over here pretending to be perfect, and I'm trying to perfect everything, and I'm just falling on my face left and right. I'm like, this isn't how it's supposed to go, because I'm looking at other people who only show the highlight reels, and I'm like, well, they're glamorously getting through life. Why am I not doing that? Right? So I'm comparing myself, but what did that do? It just stole all of the joy that I felt from myself. When I chose to really own the fact that I'm messy, everything started to change. My Instagram started to blow up. I started to make a lot more money. I stopped having so much suffocating pressure put on myself to be perfect and to just crush it and to be glamorous and like la la la. I actually just started showing up as myself. And I realized that's all I needed, like from the get-go. And I wish someone would have told me that right away. So allow me to tell it to you, because you don't need to be perfect. You don't need to have this one perfect way. You really don't. You just need to take action, whether you're growing a business, whether you are trying to find the love of your life, whether you are working on your own trauma. You just have to realize that no one actually knows what we're doing here. We're all doing what worked for us and what worked for the people around you. So for years, I was like, I'm going to try what worked for them, and I'm going to try what worked for them, and I'm going to try what worked for them, and I'm going to try what worked for them. And I was like, I don't understand. Why is it not working for me? But like, duh, it wasn't meant to. I was meant to lead in the way that I wanted to lead, which is messy. And I realized that if you compare two messy people, right? One person's super messy, and the other one is trying to perfect every little thing. The one who's super messy is going to have more results. Right? So there's a photographer, and he tells his class, and he splits them up in half. Half of you, has to make the perfect picture at the end of this photography term. It has to be perfect. So edit it, go over it, do what you got to do, present it at the end of the term. Right? The second group was, hey, take as many pictures as possible and then present me with the best one at the end of the term. Who do you think got the most results? Yeah, the messy one, the one taking a million pictures and then going back and editing it. And you oftentimes hear people say, done is better than perfect. And I did not realize what that meant. Because when you look at somebody who's on their path, right, and they're flopping all over the place and falling on their face and they're failing and they're just getting up and keeping going. If you look at that person compared to somebody else who's sitting there and thinking about it and waiting to feel ready, they are going to be miles past that person who just sat there waiting for everything to be perfect. So I was sitting there and I'm really understanding this with my own business and my relationship, and I'm watching people less qualified than me, like crushing it in some areas. And I'm like, I don't understand. What do they have that I don't? But the thing is, they don't have anything that I don't. They're not special. I'm not special. You're not special. All you need is to just take action. So much action. Because if you just continue to fuck it up, you're going to figure some things out. Something's going to stick. Something's going to work for you. And then you just rinse and repeat. After that, then you gain confidence and inspiration to keep going, and motivation and all the things that people wait for before they take action after. So for me, when it was just like, okay, cool, I get to show up messy and it still works for me and I'm still getting results and I'm still, so it really clicked that was my thing. That's your brand. That's your shtick, Like, that's the way I know how to do things. And again, I would rather have the messiest progress out there than to not be making any. Because I was also that person waiting to feel ready, not understanding why I wasn't further along. Because I'm like, well, where's this feeling? Where's this readiness? Where's this motivation? Like, where's the confidence that I need in order to get my goals? But the thing is, you don't need confidence or inspiration or motivation to accomplish your goals or to run a business or to make money or to be in a healthy relationship. You don't need any of those things. You really don't. All you need is to be brave, to be fierce, right? And so that kind of leads me into my podcast. I was like, what do I want to call it? And at first I was like, I'll call it Fearless and Free. But then I thought about that and I was like, fearless? I don't know about y'all, but I'm not fearless. I feel that fear. I feel it so deeply. Like, it's terrifying to meet the love of your life and to continue to work on a hard relationship when, it is hard sometimes being married. We talk about hard stuff, but those hard conversations are not meant to tear you apart. They're meant to bring you together. And so I had to feel that fear and do it anyway. Because if I'm not willing to communicate with my partner and talk about the hard things, then we're eventually going to grow apart. And I've been there, done that. Been married and divorced. We did not even last a year because we didn't talk about the hard things. We didn't feel that fear and do it anyway. And that's where the fierce comes in. Because again, who's actually fearless? They don't have any fear at all? Nah, that's not how that works. They feel the fear and they do it anyway. Look at any successful person that you look up to. It's not that they don't feel fear and pain and grief and sadness and all of the things. They don't just get to a certain amount of money or level of success and just not be human, So it's just a difference of choosing to be fierce, because the free part comes afterwards. When you choose to do the hard things that scared the shit out of you, you go, oh, not only do the hard things make me better, but all that motivation and discipline and inspiration and confidence comes after I did that thing. And I didn't realize this for a long time. I really didn't. I thought I wasn't allowed to be messy. And I thought, because I feel so much fear that no one's going to get that. And why would I put that on the internet? Why would I show up in a way that's all over the place? That is not acceptable, right? It's taboo. But that's not true. It's not acceptable to who? I'm making the rules of my own life. I'm quite literally the CEO of my own company and my life. So if someone decides that it's not okay, then that somebody was me, And I just went through something really, really, really challenging. And I, before that, would not have been like, yeah, I could totally get through that. I would have been like, nope, I can't do it. That's too much. I'm not good enough. I'm not capable enough. Like, that's above my pay grade. But that's not what happened. I felt terrified from what I was going through, and I got through it. And so I was like, well, how did I get through it? If it's so scary, how could I possibly have got through this? Because I felt the fear, and I did it anyway. And I gained so much trust in myself that it kind of makes me feel silly being like, dang, if you were capable of this whole time, like, what else are you capable of? What else have you just been too scared to go for? And honestly, a lot of things. Showing up in person, speaking on stages, talking on my podcast. Scary. Because sometimes I'm like, well, I'm not, my makeup doesn't look good enough, or I'm not in the right outfit, or, I don't really know what to say, and like, oh, I don't really have the perfect script. What if I forget something? What if I mess up? Like, it's a lot of fear, and I won't lie, I just thought, like, yeah, well, I can't do that. I'm not good enough. But that's not true. And me going through this really, really hard thing with my family showed me proof that not only do I got this, but I love and I trust myself, and I've had the money to get myself through everything that I just went through, and I got to disappear from social media for weeks, like 5 weeks. And before I even realized I was, gone for that long, I kind of come up for air like, holy shit. Everybody's like, where have you been? I'm like, what do you mean? I don't know, living, surviving, taking care of stuff, being terrified. And I just realized I didn't have to run away. That was so normal for me to just want to run and to isolate and to just, oh, no one will understand. But the thing is, that's just not true. I was a little bit vulnerable with some people I deeply care about, and they got to show up for me in ways I didn't get to show up for myself. And that was beautiful. So I just have to remind myself, maybe I'm a lot more healed than I think I am. Maybe I just haven't had enough experience in my life to prove that I got this. And that hurt. I won't lie. Because instead of being like, hell yeah, you got this, it was just like, damn, girl, like you've let fear suffocate you for so long. And that sucks, you know? And I didn't feel very good, but I try as hard as I can to observe my behavior without judgment. Because I'm just like, okay, why did you do that? Okay, well, it makes sense why you were afraid to show up and show out. I mean, you've been bullied, you've been suicidal, like you haven't had people meet you in the best spot, you know? So like, yeah, no shit, I'm scared. But then again, like, I almost died in silence. Not in these last couple months, but at one point in my life, I tried to take my own life. And the only reason I'm here today is because my dog, who's right here with me, stopped me. And it's just kind of wild to think that I would let anything stop me from pursuing my dreams. You've already done the unthinkable. You have lived, you know, like I have survived. And I'm not going to survive in silence. I'm not going to get this far and just be like, oh, it's no big deal, sweep it under the rug. Like, no, I get to experience my life now. That's where I want to be. You know, I almost died wanting to be where I am today. And that is like a whole level of mindfuck. Because as I ask the universe for more and I manifest more, I have to remind myself to be so grateful of what I already have. Through the mess, through the fear, through the pain, what have I created for myself? I own my home. I have a healthy marriage. I make really good money. I've partnered with billion-dollar brands. I have spoken on stage. I have shared my story. I've started a podcast. Like, I've done so much. And I had to look back. And I was like, Gabby, how much of that was glamorous? How much of that was not messy? And I was like, literally none of it. None of it was glamorous. All of it was painful. But I did it, and I'm here. And I didn't do that by being perfect. I didn't do that by people pleasing. I didn't do that for living my life in any other version of what I think I should live my life as. And that is so special because I get to decide what my life is and how I want to run it. You know, so I'm sitting here letting this fear run things. And I'm just like, girl, you love of my life, my darling, can we stop? Because imagine if you did all of that through the mess, you're just going to get better and better. And it's going to get literally easier and easier as you go. And of course, there's going to be a new level, new devil. There's always going to be a challenge. But if I choose to sit back and be like, hey, I get to take this challenge head on without being perfect, without demanding that it's glamorous or aesthetic, fuck that stuff. I get to decide how I want to show up, you know? And that feels so good to me. Because even today, I was sitting there and I was like, you know, I look nice, but like, I don't really know what to say. What if I look messy? What if I mess up? Like, you know, maybe I want to sit outside, but if I sit outside, what about the bugs? And I'm literally just worried about all this shit that doesn't matter. If I mess up, I edit it out. Or I own it, you know, because I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I'm not human. And I really hope that when I show up this messy, I get to encourage others to do the same. Because it's not always easy. And that's why I liked the name Fierce and Free. Because it's not easy to show up vulnerably. It's not easy to show up messy. It's terrifying. But look how much beautiful growth comes from that. When I started showing up messy, my Instagram followers have skyrocketed. I have gained thousands of followers. I've reached millions of people. All by just being myself. The person I have been so afraid to be this whole time. You know, the secret sauce really is you. And that feels good because like that should lift some of that pressure off you to do what everybody else is doing. You know, because that messy progress really is better than no progress at all. And when you are fierce and free and find what works for you, the possibilities are endless. And yes, there's going to be people who are going to tell you, no, don't do that, or that's too much of a risk, or you're so dumb for doing that, or That's not what I would do, or I would never do that. Oh, la, 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 la. People are going to judge you forever and for everything you do. There's literally people right now judging people for being homeless. There's people right now judging other people for being overweight, for being too skinny, for being a millionaire, for being a billionaire. Can you actually imagine that? People will criticize you for being homeless and rich and literally the color of your skin, your sexual preferences, how much money you make. I mean, people are going to tear you apart either way. And it's terrible. It's awful, and I don't agree with it. But can we change it? Can we stop it? Not really. So you might as well do whatever you're going to do. And I hope someday that enough of us become millionaires and billionaires and we actually have a say. Because if something doesn't change, the pattern continues. People are continuing patterns of reactivity and abuse and violence, and that's not helping anyone. In fact, it's hurting them long term. And you're dying from the inside out because people are so stressed and so depressed and so anxious all the time that their bodies are shutting down from this fear, from this dysregulation. And that is just wild to me. So, hey, I'm just one person, but I'm going to do my best to show what it looks like to show up in the mess. And yes, people are going to judge. Yes, people are not going to like you. But the beauty of showing up online this way is there's that little button. If they don't like you, unfollow me. Block me, if you will. I've had to block family and friends and people I thought cared about me. But when I started this healing journey, people were just like, oh my God, who the hell does she think she is? Someone who's trying to do better than the way that she was raised. That's who. Because I watched my parents fuck up their life and fuck up their kids. Me and my siblings, we got a lot of trauma, and we're doing our best to learn and to grow and to do things differently. But there's a lot of rewiring. There's a lot of things we didn't learn as a kid because we were too busy raising each other and attempting to raise our parents as well. So things have been really messy, and all we can do is let it begin and end with us. Break the pattern today or the cycle will continue. So it's simple, but is it easy? No. It is not easy. It's really not. To step out of sometimes a family dynamic, to lose friends, to lose people on the way to just doing what you think is best. Oftentimes when people grow up, they start removing things from their life that was not helpful. For me, I have removed alcohol from my life. That was a big coping skill for me. And I realized that my mess was going to get a lot messier if I continued to drink. Because I couldn't drink safely. I would cope. I'd go for one glass of wine, and before you know it, the whole bottle's gone, which, if you know anyone who drinks wine, is fairly easy to do. That's like 4 large pours. And on a bad day, that shit can be gone in an hour. But I had to choose to separate myself from something that was hurting me. Sometimes that's people. Sometimes that's jobs. Sometimes that's other substances. But you just got to do what works for you because it's your life. At the end of the day, you have yourself. And you are allowed to be a mess. You don't have to bleed all over everybody else and make it their problem. But oftentimes, it's not even your fault that you're messy or triggered or dealing with a lot of the trauma that you're probably dealing inside. And no, it doesn't have to be as wild and horrific as being physically abused or sexually assaulted or something like that. It can be smaller things like abandonment, like neglect, like not just simply getting the love and the attention that you deserved when you were small. So when you're taking on this burden, if you will, it's going to take a lot of fear and a lot of mess. And through that mess, you start to learn things. I mean, take any book that's been published that has multiple editions. The first edition was fucking it up and figuring it out and then writing it down, right? And then it's continuing to learn from that process and then eventually making some tweaks, pivoting, changing, writing it again, publishing the book. Now, this is an example from a book, but you do the same thing with your life. You find what works for you, and if for some reason it's not working, you pivot. And guess what? And I know that this sucks, but hear me out. Sometimes, most times, the things that got you here are not going to be the same things that got you to the next level, which can be a little bit challenging because you're like, well, what do you mean? I worked so hard on these tools. What do you mean they're not working? It was a level of betrayal for me because I love my tools and I worked hard to build them and to acquire them and to strengthen that habit. But that's okay because life's messy and things change, and you're not meant to stay the same. Nothing in your body was ever meant to stay the same, and neither in your life. Things are going to change, things are going to evolve, and you get to decide what they evolve into, which can be really exciting. You're not always in control of your life 24/7, and that's where a lot of the mess comes, because we sit here and we think, oh, well, if I just organized my life better, then it would be better, and this is my fault. Like, no, life just be lifing. Did I think the last couple months was going to be this difficult? No. Did I think my best friend would die? No. Did I think that I would ever have to heal from the things that I'm healing from? No. But we're here now, and we're healing from it, and we're doing our best in the process. So when I say just own your mess, own it. But don't make it anyone else's responsibility to fix or to heal. And I'm not necessarily saying that you need to be fixed, because you're not broken. But there are things that are your responsibility now to manage so that they don't hurt yourself and they don't hurt the people around you. For instance, your trauma, right? Somebody may have hurt you a long time ago, and you may be triggered by some things. And that's okay. It's not your fault that you feel them. It's not your fault that you get angry. It's not your fault that you feel so deeply. But it is your responsibility. Imagine meeting an amazing partner and you sabotage that relationship because you don't trust them and you think that they're going to hurt you. And it's much easier just to hurt you first and push you away so that you don't have the chance to hurt me. You could ruin something good, right? Same way for your business or your brand or building something sustainable or a parenthood. It all comes back to finding out what works for you and being fierce about that. It really takes a lot of courage to just go for it and to show up messy in the process. And there's a lot of people who will say not to show the mess because then you'll lose authority. I would rather have zero authority in some area and just connect human to human. Obviously, I want people to come to me as the go-to in my space, but I'm going to own that, guess what? I'm so good at what I do in my space with the emotional regulation and the nervous system regulation and the trauma healing because of my mess. So I'm always going to bring that in, and I'm not going to pretend like I'm perfect, because that's not how I get stuff done. And what works for me may not work for you. Everyone else has their own trauma, their own bodies, their own minds, their own experiences, their own perspective. But I will always encourage my clients and the people that I work with and speak to and interact with during my life that what works for me may not work for you. And the only actual way that something works for you is if you make it work for you. And this may be why some of you are beating your head against the wall, being like, this thing that they taught me is not working. It's because it's not working for you. So find what works for you, even if it takes a little longer, even if it's messy, especially if you're an entrepreneur, because what took you that long, you get to now bridge that gap for somebody else. Say, hey, this may have taken me 3 years, but it doesn't have to take you 3 years, and here's why. Same way with parenthood. I was raised this way, and it took me a long time to figure this thing out, but now I get to teach this to my children, and they get to teach it to their children. And guess what? The more you do that, the more the generational curse is lifted. But it takes courage to just go for it, because you don't know if it's going to work. And the nervous system does not like that stuff. The brain and the nervous system really love predictability. And guess what happens when you go first and you don't know what's going to happen next? Your body's terrified. It's like, nope, you're asking me to jump off a cliff with no parachute. Nope. But the beauty of having self-love and self-trust is that you had you the whole time. And yes, you may feel like you're getting shoved off a cliff and you're going to fall to your death. But right before you hit the bottom, the wings that were always there are going to pop out and you're going to be okay. You just have to decide to continue to do it. Continue to do the scary things because they make you smarter, they make you better. So I am so honored that I got to share this with you today. I'm so honored that I got to rebrand Fierce and Free. It's literally a tattoo of mine. Though she be but little, she is fierce. And while I was renaming my podcast, I was like, yeah, I'm going to do Fearless and Free. But my sweet husband was like, well, fearless is okay. Like, fearless is okay. But like, he hears me talk about it. He's like, what about fierce? Because it takes courage and bravery to do the things that you're doing, to be open and honest and vulnerable and messy. And I was like, yeah, I don't know, maybe. But then I sat on it for a while. I was like, damn, he's right. It doesn't take being fearless. And I don't want to teach someone to have no fear. I want to say, hey, I see you and I see that fear and I understand that it's there, but go get that shit anyway. Because there is no level of confidence like the confidence you gain after doing the thing that you thought you couldn't do. Like, hands down. So, I am just so honored to be here to be able to tell you these things today. And I'm going to end the episode in a new way. I'm not going to tell you to be fearless and be free and do it your way. I am going to tell you to be fierce and to be free and to find what works for you, even if it looks different from someone else, even if it's scary, even if it's messy, because you're worth it. Let it start and end with you. You never know who you could inspire just by going first.